Calling the advisory committee meeting to order for January 4th, 2022 at 7:01 p.m. This meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. Is anyone else recording the meeting this evening? All right, seeing no one. Next on the agenda, are there any comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none. So next on our agenda, we have minutes approval for two dates, December 7th and December 14th. So Nancy, you want to take it away?
Yes, there was late breaking news on the meeting minutes from the 7th. There was a spelling mistake that has been corrected, but other than that, it is as distributed.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Nancy or any last edits? I hope not. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for December 7th, 2021?
So moved. Second.
Okay, I'm giving a roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Evan,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Daveline,
Aye.
Brenda,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Al. Oh, no, I don't know, he's not here yet.
He's in, he's just on mute.
Oh, okay. Al, you're an aye?
Aye, yes.
Okay. Tina,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Caitlin,
Aye.
and I don't see Sarah on right now. Okay. So that's 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 yes, 2 abstain, or not abstain, but
No, it's just 12-0.
12-0, thank you. Okay, so the next set of minutes is for December 14th. We had everyone there except Al. Does anyone have any anything for Nancy? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes for December 14th?
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Evan,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Daveline,
Aye.
Brenda,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Al is abstain. Tina,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Caitlin.
Aye.
All right.
It's 11-0-1.
Thank you, Nancy. Busy month, busier month ahead of you, but thank you. Okay, so next up on our agenda, we have budget hearings. And the first budget hearing we have on our agenda tonight is the sewer department. And we have back with us Matt Cahill, the Assistant Superintendent of the DPW. And you want to take it away? Is this George?
Yes, it is. It is my budget. And thank you, Matt, for being here. We will hopefully send you on your way very quickly. So let me give an overview of the sewer budget, and any specific questions, Matt can certainly answer them. And I guess probably the most important and the first place to start is that the sewer budget is entirely paid by the users. So while we want to be mindful of the funds spent, the expenses are all paid by the users. So looking at, first of all, we have salaries of $402,077, which is an increase of $19,340 or 5.1%. Expenses are $321,177, which is an increase of $20,392 or 6.8%. Capital will come to us at a later date. There are engineering services which are flat to last year at $10,000. There is an MWRA assessment of roughly $2.4 million, which is an increase of $159,610 or 7%. There is debt service of $70,784, which is a decrease of $1,936 or 2.7%. And there is a intermunicipal agreement with Hull for $459,245, which is an increase of $13,376 or 3%. Total expenses, or I guess still to be determined, are the encumbrances. For fiscal 22, there were $256,000 of encumbrances. There are none listed at this point. Matt may be able to give us some idea if there are going to be any encumbrances expected for 23. Total sewer budget minus capital and encumbrances, $3,703,041. Just briefly going back quickly, looking at salaries, there are no additional payroll adds for this year. Expenses, really increases are driven by building maintenance, utilities, and fuel. And with that, I can turn it over to Matt for any additional comments or questions from the committee members. Did I leave everybody speechless?
I know, I'm like, where's Matt? I'm trying to find him on the, he was connected before.
He's here. He's there.
Hi,
Matt Cahill.
There he
work?
is. Hey, Matt.
sorry.
Anything to add, Matt?
On my end, no.
Okay.
Matt, do you want to go through any of the, do we have a PowerPoint slides
It
for,
was all done by, it's all,
did Brandy do that last time?
yeah.
I mean, I don't mind going through the slides and discussing what's on the slides. It's not a problem. And I can answer any of the questions if you guys have any questions.
Not if we already saw them though, right?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead, Andy.
On page 19, the fuel and utilities worksheet. No expenses last year, but there are expenses this year. Why is that?
I believe the worksheet was, the worksheet's what we're told to generate. So that's what town hall has us put together.
Right.
They just didn't fill in the 22 gallons, Andy, that's all.
I didn't hear you.
They just didn't fill in the FY 22 gallons used, that's all.
Yeah, so last year we used about fuel wise 9,949 gallons. in 22. And for the Weir River, it was 635 gallons. And he budgeted this year 923 gallons and 14,453 gallons. And those were based off of the utility worksheet. Does that sound right?
No, but
Well, that-
it doesn't matter if they're reasonably in the same ballpark, and then fine. That was really my only question. Were there any great increases or decreases? If not, we can move on.
Andy, for the 22 budget, there's $9,900 for fuel, and this year it's 14.5. So
Yeah.
I think fuel costs are up in general, so I think it is fairly reasonable.
Thank you. That's good. We can move on.
Daveline?
Yeah, I just had a question on the building repair and maintenance. It seems like that number goes dramatically up and down. And for this year, it's about an $8,000 increase, but a couple of years ago, it was significantly higher and then went down. I just wondered what's sort of going on with the buildings in that
It's
context.
mostly the age of the system. I think it's heavily related to that.
Yeah, and Daveline, I think Randy mentioned that last time when he went over his budgets, that a lot of these buildings are just getting old, and sometimes they may need a roof, sometimes they need other things, so the numbers can change, but it is definitely a function of the age of the buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Matt or George? Okay, hearing none. George, do you have a recommendation for us?
I do. So I recommend for the sewer budget for FY23, salaries of $402,077, expenses of $321,177, engineering fees of $10,000, MWRA assessment of $2,439,758, and debt service of $70,784, intermunicipal agreement with Hull, $459,245, for a total of $3,703,041.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us tonight, Matt, and thank you, George.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Okay, next up, we have a trio of budgets that fall under Keith German, and I think John Asher is with us as well. And GAR Hall, the Veterans Services and Celebrations. So Kristen, you want to take it away?
Sure. So I met with John, and Keith is here as well to go over these budgets. So I'll let them give a little bit of background on the Grand Army Hall, and then I'll go through the numbers, and then if anyone has any questions from there. So thanks, Keith, for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. So the Grand Army Hall, that's managed by the Select Board appointed 3-member trustee board. Currently, there's a vacancy on that board. We had a member just resign recently who went back to full-time employment, so he was unable to juggle that. As was just mentioned a few minutes ago, this is a 133-year-old historic museum memorializing military service for the town's veterans dating back to the Civil War. Pre-COVID, we used to have self-guided tours. Those tours were conducted on the first and third Saturdays monthly, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The building serves several other town functions or groups, including Boy Scouts, the police department, the 50 Flag Campaign Program, which helps fund the 4th of July parade, the Hingham Militia, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legion, and the Disabled American Veterans. Annually, again, also pre-COVID, we had conducted a annual sophomore field trip. It was very welcomed by the principal, i.e. the school board and the teachers. This is a free field trip where the students would walk up from Union Street to the museum. They'd stay for 2 periods. They'd watch a small slideshow, and then they would actually interact with veterans. I was happy to say over the last 10 years, we had veterans from every major war or conflict on hand. So World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Cold War, Iraq, Afghanistan, the Gulf. The fiscal year 23 operating expenses, 24,187, 15,034 for repairs, maintenance, service contract for building elevators and grounds, 9,153 for utilities and supplies. That's your electric, gas, water, phone, internet.
Thanks, Keith.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you want to, if anyone's with their budget books, it's on page 32 as well. But if Nancy, if you could just pull up the budget for. Thanks. So you can see here, probably the biggest increase was for the R&M buildings, and $5,000 of that was related to the contract renewal of the elevators. And then a couple of other things in that is for window repairs, alarm, fire and service contracts, and flags. And then the other increase was related to the telephones. You can see it went up from 1,566 to 2,304. So it's $468 increase. That is due to, I think Keith had said that the billing changed. It used to be considered residential, and that it has since changed to commercial rates. So that is something that they may look into to see if that can be adjusted. So overall expenses increased $4,435 for total expenses of $24,187, and that's a 22.4% increase. And if anyone has any questions.
Anyone have questions on this budget? Okay, seeing none. Do you want to give a recommendation, Kristen?
Sure. I recommend for Grand Army Hall's budget expenses in the amount of $24,187 for fiscal year 23.
Okay, great. All right, so the next budget that you're going to cover is veteran services.
Yes. So I'll kick it back to Keith again for this.
Just quickly running through the summary of the slides. Next slide, please. What's our main function of the office is to administer benefits to qualifying veterans and or their dependents under Mass General Law, Chapter 115. So for those who are new maybe to AdCom, that's a reimbursement type program. This is mandated by the state that veterans, widows, and orphans receive some sort of a stipend to increase their cost of living. Usually to qualify, you must be within 200% of the below the federal poverty rate. So this is basically a helping hand for those who've given so much. It's been around since the Civil War. So this is not a new law. This is a very old law that I'm happy to say the Commonwealth of Mass is the only state in the Union that provides this type of relief to eligible veterans. We also coordinate the military ceremonies and the events to recognize and honor Hingham veterans, i.e. Memorial Day, Veterans Day. We'll get into that in the next budget. We also manage the townwide flag notification alert system for the 37 municipal flagpoles that are located within town. We liaison with the regional, state, and federal official programs to advocate for veterans resources, services, and benefits. And just going back up to number one, I failed to mention that's a 75-25 split. So the state is on the hook for reimbursing the town of Hingham 75% of all allocated funds if they qualify under this budget. Next slide. Next slide. So the Commonwealth, I have now been certified again this year. It's a 3-year program for recertification. So we're compliant with Chapter 115. If we are non-compliant, then that 75-55 that I mentioned goes to 50-50. Chapter 115 benefits paid to an average of 20 elderly clients monthly, totaling $142,116 for fiscal year 21. Again, you can see the actual dollar amount for that year that was refunded to the town. So when you're addressing this budget, keep in mind that a year later, these funds are returned to the general fund, and Sue Nickerson tucks them away where she needs it. So Massachusetts, I mentioned that is the only state that has this. We also take care of federal benefits. So those are VA cases. That's the big VA that you hear on TV. I manage right now 208 cases for VA compensation awards. It shows you what that is in real money. So those people, what they receive from the federal government, the 208 people. And on average, that's $1,300 plus per person, per veteran and or widow. That money is then returned to the town in the form of going out to eat or paying things, and so that money is money that's tax free and then is influxed back into our economy. Next slide. We have 2 funds. One is under special legislation and one is under our town under state law, which allows us to provide immediate assistance. So sometimes those checks, those benefits that I'm mentioning to those 20 elderly clients, those could take up in excess of 10 days to reach that person. And sometimes a person has just literally run out of oil tonight. So we have funding in place to provide that support with local vendors in town. We never actually pay the client, we pay the vendor to abate the emergency situation. We also manage the Valor Act. That's another state law that I passed local adoption in our town at town meeting. 10 persons were authorized. We currently have 5 that fill those positions. And I can say that I gain over this year was over 2,660 volunteer hours. So those are hours that are volunteered by veterans and or their proxy. They in turn receive $1,500 exemption off their taxes. But the amount of support I receive is immeasurable. So we support the currently 5 residents at the Commander Paul Anderson House. That's a 6-room SRO located on Fort Hill Street. We manage the town's consolidated flag purchase program. With that program, we have seen quite a bit of savings. We've consolidated all the purchases through one vendor. And I'm very fortunate to also report that every single office, every single meeting room in town hall, and now recently Sanborn Auditorium has flags set. So that's the pole, the base, the gold stand, etc., which are provided to us free for gaining points, if you will, for making large bulk purchases. So that's a great benefit. We have the Hank Mod Service Above Self Veteran of the Year Award that we hand out annually. This year, that was handed out to retired Coast Guard Captain Henry Jack Rayburn. And that's awarded annually on Veterans Day. I serve as the military liaison to Hingham High School Veterans Appreciation Club. Maybe unbeknownst to some people in Hingham, that's the largest participated club that the Hingham High School has. It has over 40 students that participate in that, and they provide services in kind back to our veterans at ceremonies. They provide breakfast, they do things at Christmas, Wreaths Across America, and the list goes on and on. But anytime we have a chance to link up students, young people with elderly veterans, that is a win-win for the town and for every citizen herein. I'm also advocating to restore the town's military monuments. There's over 20 monuments in town that I'm responsible for and upkeep, etc. Next slide. These are the salaries pulled off the schedule that's produced at the accounting office. The one controllable, if you see at the very top of the slide where I have strategically placed in italics the word controllable, these are my expenses. So in my budget, I roughly control only this part. So this $7,667 that we're asking for, and the major items there underneath are what we can control. What I mean by control is if someone comes in and they qualify for benefits, the state says, as of post-Civil War, you will produce those benefits and then we'll get the 75-25 split. So that's a mandate. Next slide. So with that said, again, strategically placed is the non-controllable major items. Ordinary benefits is just what it sounds like. So those benefits are financial benefits. It's almost like if you think of it like a paycheck or a supplemental income or you know, an allowance of some kind. That is to provide that person and or family with sustenance and fuel. The average monthly request to the state from my office for ordinary benefits is $3,100. $145,291 for medical attention and supplies. As you can see, that completely dwarfs the ordinary benefits. As you know, medical care in this country is astronomical, and we have to keep pace with that. The Blue Cross Blue Shield group policy, we currently have 8 clients. When we started that about 10 years ago, we were as high as 24. And that has gone the way of attrition. So those people either and or moving out of town or deceasing. The average monthly request, $12,100. So you can see it's 4 times as much as the financial benefit. Miscellaneous, 2625. That's for the also Mass General Law, which says every veteran's grave in Hingham, which we have about 3,000 approximately, a little over, will be decorated the 3 weeks preceding Memorial Day. And decoration means the placing of a U.S. flag at the base of the grave and or footstone. That's also reimbursable. Next slide.
That's it.
Okay, so I just wanted to touch on that last slide one more time, that that 2625 actually did not cover this year. As you know, our greatest generation veterans, World War II and Korea, are passing away at an alarming rate in this country because so many served. So I'm actually out of pace with that amount, but we do the best we can through those donations and the funds that I mentioned in one of those funds, which is the Veterans Benefit Fund. And also the 50 Flags campaign helps us out with any additional flags that we need. But I currently have lost pace. I'm out of pace with the 5% annual increase that the state allows because of the amount of deaths we've had in Hingham. That's it. Any questions?
Thanks, Keith. I can go over some of the numbers just that have changed from last year. Okay, so starting at the top, the salaries, there was an increase of $3,494 for this year, which is 3.1% increase. And that is just due to the wage and classification study that we're all aware of, plus longevity. And then for under the expenses, pretty much they actually went down in total from last year, but R&M grounds is what Keith described as for the wreaths and poles and flags. And everything else I think is pretty self-explanatory for that. And then the final item is the benefits, which Keith went over. And again, these are non-controllable items that we're required to pay. And as Keith stated, 75% of that is reimbursed back, but that is due to Keith's and his department's timely filing of all of this paperwork. So that's why we're able to get the full 75% back every year. So I just want to thank Keith and his department for doing that because it's a big task. So overall, the budget increased $15,503 this year, which was a 5.3% increase. So if anyone has any questions.
Andy? Andy?
Sorry. Could you just repeat that last number, Kristen?
Which number, Andy?
I think you were, the percentage and the increase.
Increase, yep. So the overall budget increased $15,503, which was a 5.3% increase from last year.
5.3%, okay. And the only other question I had is what is the source of the funds for the two funds, and what are the balances?
So Andy, the two funds that we have in Hingham, one is called the Veterans Benefit Fund.
Yeah,
Off the top of my head, currently that has about $11,000 in there. The second fund is the Veterans in Need Fund. That's roughly around 30,000. The Veterans in Need Fund was adopted somewhere prior to my existence in 2010, and it was passed through special legislation at the time. Over the last 10 years, the town of Hingham has and utilized that fund and kind of shouted it from the rooftops as well. The state, and having three of our best and brightest up on Beacon Hill from time to time, will poke the bear and say, hey, look what Hingham does. So somewhere along the line, the Federal and State Veterans Affairs Committee, which Joe Machino is currently a member of, adopted what we had set in motion for special legislation and created it under the Home Act to allow every veteran service department, so the 351 municipalities, to open up a gift account. I believe, Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what that's called, a gift account, for the exception of donations in kind. Those donations that we see in Hingham for the Veterans in Need Fund are earmarked specifically for emergency food, fuel, shelter, or lodging. The Veterans Service Officer administrates those funds after qualifying the individual, and it's audited by the accountant and dispersed by the Treasury to the vendor. Like I said, we never really pay a person. We always pay the vendor for the problem. So if there was a lodging issue, i.e. we'd put the person up in a local motel, we would negotiate that and make those payments. Those funds are seen through direct donation. They're seen through online donation that currently Jean Montgomery, our treasurer, has put on the website live. So we get those live. And what they call the, you'd probably, all of you, maybe most of you, got your last 2-quarter income tax, not income tax, your property tax in the mail. And there's that little white envelope or that little white paper we call the stuffer. And on the stuffer, it has several different things where you can allocate where your money goes. So for instance, if you had an $89 excise tax, you could round that up to 100 and then check the block for veterans in need. And then my department would get that $11 eventually through inserted into the gift account. The Veterans Benefit Fund is earmarked for those monuments that I mentioned, restoration, plaques, Veteran of the Year. I mentioned Jack Rayburn receiving that this year. His name goes on a plaque up at GAR Hall. We also used to provide an annual scholarship to UMass Boston for a veteran who was pursuing higher education.
Thank you very much, Keith. Do you have enough money in those funds to do what you want to do?
So just like I mentioned before, Hingham kind of led the way on that. I can safely say that we have, through the generosity of the citizens of this town, we seem to have a perpetual budget of about $30,000, and I can tell you that we expend at least that amount as well annually. So those are those things that fill in the gaps that aren't covered by Mass General Law, Chapter 115, i.e. dental is only partial, hearing aids, zero, things like that people need if they're already receiving Chapter 115 benefits, that means they're living 200% below the federal poverty line. How in God's name are they going to afford some of those other, quote unquote luxuries, hearing aid, eyeglasses? So we help to defray those costs as well. And like I said, through the good naturedness of this town, that budget seems to put a penny in the jar, and the jar never seems to go empty, yet I expend that amount as well. So very great to see that here in Hingham. Not so sure it's adopted that well in other communities, but great for us.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, Kristen, do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes. I recommend for the veteran service budget, salaries in the amount of $115,194. Expenses in the amount of $7,067. Benefits in the amount of $185,609 for a total budget of $307,609.
Okay, great. And then we have the final budget of celebrations.
Fiscal year 23 ask is 17,567. I have direct oversight of 13,817. The remaining balance is used for the July 4th first responder details. Because it's a celebration, quote unquote, it falls under my budget. The placement and replacement of metal grave markers for the deceased veterans in Hingham cemeteries. So we have 6 privately owned cemeteries in Hingham. As I mentioned, we have well over 3,000 graves, and this would also be in accordance with Mass General Law that those markers be made of metal. In the past, they had been made of plastic or bronze, which we no longer do because of sometimes during hard times, people do difficult things or make difficult decisions, and we've gotten away from using that precious metal. Production of the annual ceremonies that are associated with wreaths and plantings. So this would be National Peace Officers Memorial Day. We hold that in front of Town Hall on the 15th of May as nationally set. Memorial and Veterans Day observances, so the last Monday of May and November 11th. The Battle of Grape Island, which is held on the last Sunday, the third Sunday nearest to the 21st of May. The 4th of July Parade, POW MIA National Recognition Day, Seaman Herbert Lewis Foss Recognition Day, so that's his birthday. This year we celebrated the 150th. And what's not on that slide is National Pearl Harbor Recognition Day, which this year I had the honor of escorting, I believe, to be our last World War II veteran, 94-year-old Ed Demko, to the Hingham shipyard where we have a U.S. Navy memorial, and we laid a wreath there. He's 94. So great day there, banner day. It was some folks that turned out. We wouldn't be able to do it without these celebrations budgets.
Thanks, Keith. Nancy, if you could just bring up the budget, I can go over the numbers. So for these numbers, the first one, the 4th of July, Keith explained that is for responders detail. The next one, Memorial Day, some of that includes catering, speaker gifts, and grave markers. For the Veterans Day, that includes wreaths, catering, and speakers gifts. And then the Battle of Grape Island, that includes concessions and money paid to reenactors. So for this budget, it went up $460 from last year, which is a 3.4% increase. And the total expenses are $17,567.
Does anyone have any questions about the celebrations budget? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So Kristen, you want to make your recommendation, please?
I recommend for the celebrations budget expenses in the amount of $17,567 for fiscal year 23.
All right, great. Thank you, Keith, for all that you do, and nice to have you on tonight. So thank you.
Madam Chairman, thank you so much, members of the board, and Kristen, I appreciate all your help.
Thanks, Keith, and also thanks to John for meeting with me.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. Yeah, I had been
Thank you,
out
John.
I had been out on some medical leave for a while, and John was he was at the helm. So we're very lucky to have him, very fortunate.
Thank you.
All right. So next budget we have tonight is information technology, and I saw that Bill Hardigan, our IT director, was on the call. There he is. Hi, Bill.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. So I can start with this overview with this PowerPoint we've got. If you can go to the next slide. So this is for those members who were on this committee last year, fairly similar to what Steve Becker had presented as well. Basically, we still service all 26 town departments and boards and committees, with the exception of the light plant. 16 different locations across our municipal fiber network. Obviously, implement and monitor cybersecurity measures and all that goes with it: web spam filters, firewalls, training, and such. And we've got roughly 300 user accounts, 36 servers, 2 storage area networks, 280 user devices, being desktops, laptops, or tablets, printers, cameras, a whole litany of equipment as well that goes into producing all this technology that makes everything work. We've got the town-wide voice system. So we've got a master server here at Town Hall, 30 switches located throughout the various town buildings and school buildings, and 750 handsets, again, throughout all of the facilities. And we do the procurement, configuration, deployment, maintenance of all of that equipment. And then on top of that, we've got the 3 websites and 11 social media accounts that we're responsible for. Next slide, please. So we've got some key initiatives, some projects that have been in the works and got delayed a bit. A redundant fiber loop to replace the existing Comcast iNet fiber. Comcast is abandoning their aging infrastructure of iNet fiber, which is forcing us to install our own fiber. This was a project that was approved a couple of years ago. COVID affected manufacturing of the fiber optic glass. And I actually just spoke with our contractor today, and he's telling us we're looking at about 2 weeks before they'll actually start construction. So hopefully before even town meeting, we'll have this all installed and completed. We're also working on upgrading our data center here at Town Hall, working with an engineer that's very familiar with these kind of projects for the heating and lighting, and more so the cooling than the heating in that room, because we generate a lot of heat with our equipment. Cooling, electrical, battery backup, generator backup, all that to keep the lights on, even if there is a power outage. We're looking at network switch upgrades. So, all of our machines have to connect to a network switch or multiple network switches. There's 30 of them throughout our environment, and they're coming to end of life in calendar year 22. So we want to get ahead of that and replace them before their end of life. End of life means they won't be supported by the vendor, but they'll still work. But we want to be on supportable hardware. Just as I started here back in early May, I came just at the right time to help Steve install the new server backup appliance. That's been in, running, and working great for us. We've implemented some network monitoring on all our various pieces of equipment, so we know if there's a problem, we can be proactive in managing that. Placed a help desk system ticketing system. Last May, a capital project that was approved was a storage area network upgrade for our storage of all of our servers and data that we have here. And that's been installed and up and running. And we're looking at bringing in a universal endpoint management suite, which is a really fancy name for a desktop management product. This would allow us to do hardware and software inventory, software deployment, software licensing control, as well as security vulnerability patching and updates. So just a few things we're looking to do over the next year as well. And then we can go into the numbers, which is the next slide. So, what I looked at was trying to keep things as flat as I could from FY22 budget to 23, as I'm still here just over 6 months, 8 months at this point now. Just trying to get my feet under me. But one of the areas where it did increase is the service and support agreements. And we have roughly 5 to 10% increases on an annual basis from our various service providers. So I increased that a little bit, as well as account for different systems we're bringing in. But other than that, kept everything flat, or as flat as we could. And Caitlin and I had a discussion about this, and I think she's got some more information as well on that.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. You're doing such a great job there. I didn't want to cut you off. Nancy, do you want to just flip to the expense slide? Yes, I'll go through this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in salaries, we're seeing about a 3.6 increase from last year, which is about $10,700. And that's really driven by the employee reclassification that we're seeing in the full-time IT line, offset a little bit by the longevity coming down year over year. On the expense side, the main driver of increase is in the computer service agreement line, which is about $44,378. Bill shared with me that this is really driven by annual contract increases in the 5 to 10% range, along with some new service agreements for replaced equipment from prior years. The major change from last year is really in that capital section. As you see, there's nothing in for 2023 in the capital section. Bill, I don't know if you had a chance to follow up on if the IT upgrades should be in there or not.
Yeah, we're continuing to work on the capital, and we'll be back with more information on that.
Okay, great. Yep, and so for the full year over year change from 22, we're seeing about $179,906 decrease, was about 22%. Are there any questions?
Andy? Oh. You're on mute, Andy.
Sorry.
There you go.
The numbers in this salary are net of the reimbursements from the school and the water system, correct?
Correct.
And that would add, if I add it, that would add $84,437 to the 312,046.
Correct.
Okay, and are the reimbursements roughly about what we have seen in the past year or two?
I believe they are. Sue, can you help me out on that?
Yes, they are. The schools are 20% of all salaries. Of course, the GIS is pretty new, so the water is just, that's a brand new reimbursement.
Okay. Thank you.
George?
Thanks, Julie. Andy's sort of led the way into my question, and I appreciate that the school reimbursement is at 20%. So just wondering if that if the workload is 20%, or based on recent developments, is that workload actually more than 20%, and should that schedule be revisited?
Yeah, the school has their own support system. They have a IT manager over there and some staff who handle the bulk of it. The support we're providing is really to the administrative school admin office that's here co-located in the town hall suite. and then the town-wide voice system as well.
Okay, so you think it's appropriate number?
Yeah, it seems to be appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Bob?
Yeah, thanks for being here, Bill. I had two questions. In past years, there seemed to be a lot of discussion about the adequacy of space for your operations. Does that remain an issue, and where are we going with that? And the second question is, we read about or hear about a lot of attacks on municipal IT systems. And do you feel you have the adequate resources to keep Hingham's IT resources as reasonably safe as we can?
Yeah, I'll take the questions in turn. So the space, you're talking physical space as far as office?
Yes.
Yeah, we could always use more space. But what we have is working. Like we are looking at the renovations of the main server room here in Town Hall, which is actually right behind my head here. And addressing that, there are some issues with that, but once we get that project done, which has been in the works for a while, that'll really help us out. And the rest of it, we've got the office space. There's the three of us up here on the third floor, and then Lonnie is kind of cohabitating over in DPW for right now. I don't see any more space. If there were new building being built, would we like space to be different? Sure, but honestly, this actually works. I've worked in a lot less space, and I think this will work for us. The second question, that's a constantly changing requirement, but I think we do have the tools, and we'll be looking to bring in some more tools. And like I said, the desktop management suite is yet one more tool where we could be proactive with some of these things. And a suite like that is, about $15,000 a year in service and maintenance, and that's forecasted in our operating, because I do want to bring one in. Whether I can do it this year or wait till next year remains to be seen, but I hopefully to bring that in sooner. But we've got multiple levels of tools. We've got our firewalls, we've got our antivirus software, we've got third-party monitoring of email, third-party monitoring on some of our network traffic. So we've got a very multi-layered approach here, which is something I firmly believe in. And I think it's a good platform, and we'll just continue to keep trying to stay one step ahead if we can. I feel sometimes it's a half a step, but as long as we still have a half a step on them, we're doing good.
Thank you.
George, you had another question?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up, Bill. On the school side, is there coordination of purchasing or leasing of system upgrades or hardware or software that occurs between your department and the school side? And if there is not, is there an opportunity for some kind of a bulk purchase or maybe some cost savings there?
Yeah, I think a lot of our needs are different, especially when you get into the desktop environment. Schools are predominantly Apple, Mac type platform, or Chromebooks. And I know the schools here use a lot of both of those, which we don't usually use much of that on the town side with traditional Windows desktops. So totally different platforms. And I know the schools get different discounts than municipal entities as well. And sometimes we can't co-purchase because of some of those discounts that are available.
Okay.
The schools have one thing called E-rate, where they get reimbursed from the federal government for certain things. So they can purchase those things at that rate, and I can't participate in that purchase, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you.
Bill, I have a question for you. I'm not sure if you have the answer right now, but I have been thinking about, we've been meeting remotely for the past 2 years, and I'm thinking about brighter days ahead when we can go back and meet together at Town Hall in our AdCom room on the 3rd floor. But as you know, we have this new way of conducting our meetings. So we do have people coming, by Zoom. And I just wanted to get your take on what it would take to make all the rooms or many of the meeting rooms in town hall, how you could set it up so that we could, again, someday meet in person when it's safe to do so, but somehow have an external link so that you could still perhaps have some kind of participation remotely from people who want to attend the meeting outside of the committee.
It's actually
And
one of the
what it
things
would cost, and what do you think it would cost?
I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I actually did have a couple of vendors who do this. They do them for schools quite a bit, and they're expanding into municipal space because a lot of schools went to that hybrid learning environment. And what we're talking about is roughly the same kind of technology, where we have a media device, whether it's a TV, touch TV, or projector, and camera in the room so that people can participate, kind of what we're doing now, and some people physically in the room. So it's very similar technology to what the schools have implemented. Many schools have implemented. So I had them come in, look at the rooms. I've got two quotes from two different vendors as to what it would take to do all the different meeting rooms here at Town Hall. I just don't have them in front of me, but room by room, I do have that information somewhere.
Like ballpark, like bigger than a bread basket, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, depending on the room, and it could be 25,000, depending on how and much we want to go. It could be there were multiple options, so we could do 15 to 25-ish.
Mhm. And that'd be like a one-time cost.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be like a 80-inch TV with a wide angle camera, maybe depending on the room, because some rooms required based on their experience with sound, maybe some in-ceiling microphones to pick up audio from the back half, what would be the back half of the room, depending how the room is set up, and things of that nature to make it a immersive experience. So it's actually participants actually enjoy it. They're not struggling to hear anything. So some speakers, things of that nature.
Okay. Thanks for checking into that.
Sure, no problem.
Does anyone else have any questions for Bill or questions for Caitlin about the budget? Okay, seeing none. Caitlin, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yep. So I recommend for the Information Technology Department a budget for fiscal year 23 of $633,000, $633,138, made up of salaries of $312, $46, and expenses of $321.92.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Bill. Nice to have you on tonight.
All right, thank you. It's nice virtually meeting everybody.
Next year, hopefully we'll see you in person.
There we go.
Yeah.
We can all hope.
Yeah. Okay, next up we have the South Shore Country Club, and we have Kevin Whalen on with us tonight. And Matt, are you going to take this budget?
Yeah, I think Al and I will tag team it, but I'll kind of kick in at the end. And Kevin has some of the major expense items in the back of his presentation, some of the slides. So we'll hit some of those in Kevin's comments.
Great.
So Kevin, why don't you start, and then we'll go through the numbers at the end, if that's okay.
Sure. So you can go to the next slide, please. So the country club, as we all know, is an 18-hole golf course. We have the driving range, PGA Tour, golf simulators, the pro shop. We do have tennis courts that are free of charge for the residents of Hingham. We provide a bowling alley, dining, and private function spaces through a vendor. And we also have professional golf lessons. And also we partner with the Hingham Recreation for Youth programs. We are, this year we're proposing a budget of expenses of $1,947,000 and $1,947,015 for the budget. We're also projecting revenue of $2,218,000. So things are going very well at the country club. We've had a very good year this past year, and this year is looking good as well. And we're looking to have another great year in fiscal year 23. We have a great partnership with the rec that provides a lot of summer programs and gives us great revenue. We work with the Country Club Management Committee, who oversees the country club, and also the Friends to develop long-range plans and enhance, what we can do from an infrastructure standpoint and improvements at the country club. We do have the lease arrangement with Raphael's that provide all the food services and take over all the function space in the restaurant space. You can go to the next slide. We have about over to $32,000 golf rounds this past year. Golf has been very busy. We have really, have 130 people on our wait list right now. So it's just been a boom. COVID, is the one good thing that came out of that, is that it's been very good for the golf course here at South Shore Country Club. You can go to the next slide.
How many of those rounds were Bob Curley?
Well, I think Kathy plays more than Bob, that's for sure. So, but Bob gets out there quite a bit.
And she plays better.
I didn't say that, Bob. So we have a couple of key initiatives. We have the new maintenance building, which is ongoing. We've completed the site work for the new maintenance building. We also, the pool complex, we have finished the design, and we're going to the estimators, and we should have a final estimate for that work next week. We also, after all this is done, then we'll work on a master plan for the rest of the course and how the patron's going to interact as we look forward to implementing the master plan in the outgoing years. We also are doing a facility building assessment. That is for the bowling alley, the restaurant area, and the function space. We have not, that one was done in 2005, but as we all know, the building is 100 years old. The restaurant space is, and the bowling alley is about 70 years old. So we want to kind of get a baseline of where we're at, and then develop a deferred maintenance program that will tell us what we need to invest in to maintain the buildings from 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, and then 5 to 10 years. One of the initiatives that we have in this budget too is a new point of sale contract. We put that out to bid. We anticipated that would cost us about $50,000 a year. Prior to this award, we have done it with a trade where they got 2 tee times a day throughout the year, and also golf carts. So what we did was we put it out, so we want to pay the cash value of that rather than doing a trade. And I think it's going to end up being a better situation for us financially. So we'll get the revenue for those 2 tee times, but we'll just pay the vendor for the services that they provide for the reservation system and the point of sale. So really, it's a full reservation system where people can, do the reservation for the golf online, and also the point of sale in the pro shop when we ring them into the register. Another initiative is a front end loader, and we're going to, rather than bond this out, we're going to provide for the funding in the budget. This is something that we need. We have a 2007 is the front end loader right now, is the age of it. And the latest storm that we had back in early November there really became apparent it just can't do some of the work that we need to be done. So we're looking at a piece of equipment that'd be about $75,000. And this piece of equipment would allow us to do a lot of construction work in-house, redoing some of the bunkers. Those type of things we'd be able to do in-house. So we're looking at it's more of a lightweight front end loader, not like you'd see like that the DPW uses, because you can't bring that on the golf course because of the compaction issues. So this is a something that is more nimble, but it would really suit the needs of what we need here at the country club. And like I said, we have a John Deere that's I think 14 years old at this point. It's still usable for many different functions, but it just can't do a lot of things that we need it to do. The other thing is a capital improvements to the restaurant and function area. There is a wall that the windows need to be replaced, and some structural work needs to be done on the wall of one of the function walls, and that's to the east side over by the tent. So I have $25,000 in my budget to replace the windows and to redo the work on the siding on that portion of the building. We do have increased revenue in this budget. We're predicting that we'll be back to pre-pandemic levels. We did about just over $2 million last year in the fiscal year, and fiscal year 21. We're looking to do 2.2 this year. I think with the recreation partnership being full steam ahead, we did a 10% increase with our for our permit holders this season, and that'll continue into FY23, that we should be able to bump up our revenue. And also the new point of sale system as well should allow us to increase our revenue and bottom line. So I think these some initiatives, I think, are all good news for us, and we're kind of, moving in the right direction. You can go to the next slide. So we have 11 full-time personnel, and our increases in salaries are twofold. One is the wage salary increases from the wage survey that's been implemented. And then also we have wage increases for the part-time and seasonal personnel. And we're also, I'm going to be working with Lisa Campbell and the personnel board to increase our wage schedule for the employees that work on the golf course, our seasonal employees. Currently, we start them at $13.50 an hour, and it's difficult to find people to fill those positions. So we're looking to separate the front of the house, which is the starters and the pro shop staff from, and then, they'll still stay at the same level that they're at, the minimum wage level, and then a little bit bump every year that they come back. But we're looking to increase the folks out on the golf course, the grounds crew, just because we're just not competitive and we need to pay more. So that's the increases in the salaries that we have in this budget. In major expenses, we did put $50,000 in the reservation and point of sale contract, but I think that is going to be significantly less based on the vendors' responses to the RFP that we just finished. There's $164,000 for golf course applications, and this money kind of goes back and forth a little bit. So for instance, there was the need to do some more herbicides and things of that nature this year because we had significant, more with the heat, and then also the humidity, it changes basically what you have to do from an application standpoint, but the number kind of stays pretty stagnant as far as the overall number as far as what we use. And then $70,000 for pro shop merchandise is in this budget, $90,900 for utility costs. And then I put in there again, the major expense of the purchase for the new front end loader. And it is important. I think everyone knows, but we're an enterprise account. So we really do watch very closely. We're dependent on the revenue, and we can't spend more than what we bring in. As again, I stated, we had a very good year last year. We're looking to repeat that to increase our fund balance, and so that we have, a good reserve fund as we go into the out years. So if we do have a lousy April or May weather-wise, that we're able to, rather than go to the town for a reserve fund transfer, that we'll be able to use our own funds for that. And we're getting to that point where we have a good reserve fund moving forward. So, and I think this budget would add to that. I think this year we'll be able to add significantly to it as well. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Could I add one quick thing? Which
Sure, Alan.
Just to commend or highlight for both Kevin and Chris Riley, the pro, in terms of revenue and expenses. I wanted to point out that they did, as a gesture of goodwill to the town, support the Hingham High golf team and had them out for all their practice rounds and their competitive rounds, and picked up the cost of that. So that was helpful to the high school golf team. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. We're glad to work with the kids and Coach Clune. He does a great job with the kids, and we're glad to work with the kids to, improve their game. And I think, one of the things in talking about that is the junior program has been one of the difficult things for us to, we haven't had the junior membership this past year, or this year going forward. And the difficult part for us is that the way the reservation system works is that we have permit holders get approximately, if you're 10 days and 7 days. So if you're an unlimited member, you get a 10-day advance to book a tee time. If you're a limited member, you get 7 days, and then the public gets 5. And with the junior membership, it was only 2 days. So what was happening was essentially there were no tee times for the junior members. So we're just kind of put into a spot where we can't sell something that we can't, a service that we can't provide. So what we have done is we've partnered with Mass Golf, and they have Youth on Course, which is makes it a very reasonable cost for the kids to play. And we try to work with them to get them out on the course. It's not the same as the junior membership, how it used to be, but at least it's something that the kids can do throughout the summer.
I figured you'd balance out my accommodation.
Exactly. Thanks.
Okay, so do you want to go through the budget numbers?
So we have 2.2 million, 100, I mean, $2,018,000 for revenue that we're projecting for this fiscal year. And
I mean, 2,218,000, right, Kevin?
Yep, that's correct. Yep, 2,218,000, and then our expenses are $1,947,015. So $1,947,015. We have $979,415 for salaries, and then $967,600 for expenses. There's really no additional changes. The only changes you can see is the building maintenance is changed because we had $135,000. We're going to be putting a new roof on the bowling alley in the cart barn down below. That building is in pretty dire need of putting a roof on before we lose it. So we're putting a roof on that in the bowling alley, which we had money in this budget to do that this fiscal year. So we're looking to do that. And so that item has come down. That is the maintenance of the buildings. And then what we've done is we've moved some of that money that we had in that line item to equipment line item and increased that by $75,000.
Nancy, I think it's the slide before the first PowerPoint slide. I could be wrong. If you're looking for the totals, the total on the revenue, I guess, or the expense, I should say.
Yeah, the expenses.
Matt or Al, do you want to jump in and go through anything that you want to go through?
Yeah, Kevin,
Stay in the revenue. I was trying to get out of the revenue and into the expenses.
if you keep going down a little bit, the slide right before, just the total, not the individual line items, should have the total expense number. If you keep going a little bit. One more back, I guess. Is this Kevin? We're on the right one?
Yeah, so this should be the FY23 request. It says 1988015. But that's off by, but I don't know, the 88.
Yeah, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I had that number down. That number represents a 5.1% increase year over year.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The delta, the difference there is 41 or 40.
39,000.
But I wasn't sure.
41, yeah, 41,000. 41,000.
Was that something that came out of the select board presentation from 12/21 or something like that, or is this is this the number?
Yeah. So that number 981988015 is I think what happened now that when I changed the additional money for the point of sale system to include the point of sale system. So it's 1988015, but the salaries are 979,415.
So is that that number still good then?
Yeah, that's a good number.
Okay.
So this is the number. This is the final number.
Yes. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All good.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Andy. I'll wait.
What page are the salaries on? I got lost in the shuffle.
The salaries are all mixed into each individual sleeve, so you can't just pick out
okay.
salaries.
Okay.
So I've added up this. Yeah, I've added up the salaries. They're 979,415.
And what's the increase from last year?
I don't know exactly because all the salaries were bumped up from last year. I mean, it is significant because we had several employees went through the salary wage increase, and it's all related to the salary, the salary study. It's all related to the salary study. And we had 3 employees that actually went through the process with the salary study that were basically included in the, seasonal employees but were full-time employees. So that has changed as well. So that's all included in the salary line item.
The big line item though, right, is seasonal going from, it is actually up there if you scroll back and want to see.
Right. Yeah, seasonal went from.
It's 235 for fiscal year 2023.
It went from
up from 207, I'm showing in 2022, 207, 500. So.
And that's right. And that line item too was that we only spent about 170 last year, and it wasn't because we were trying to be thrifty. It was because we just couldn't find help to do the work. So the line item did go from 207,000 to 235,000, and that's an anticipation of us going forward to the personnel board for salary increases for the grounds crew, seasonal grounds crew.
That's on page 56, I see, right?
Yeah.
It's for those of you who have books.
And just remember, it's an enterprise fund, so whatever they spend, they have to get from the revenue.
Yeah, and so for me, what I've done, and I think Sue can speak for support me on this, since I have been here, I am, I don't spend more than what we bring in, and I watch it throughout the year to ensure that, we do have positive cash flow. I mean, I think other than the first year, which wasn't a full year for my being here, that we have had a positive cash flow.
Yes, you have.
So I think, it's something that we really do watch, and I think my whole team takes pride in, delivering those results, and we'll continue to do so throughout this fiscal year and then FY23 as well.
Kevin makes my June fly by.
So Matt or Al, you want to have anything else?
I didn't have the breakout of the payroll versus the general, so I was just going to do the total number if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I recommend for the South Shore Country Club budget for fiscal year 2023, total expenses of $1,988,015.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you, Matt.
Does anyone have any questions for Kevin or Matt or Al about South Shore Country Club?
Do you charge enough to cover all the divots for Curly?
That's an infinite number. So yes, yeah.
Isn't there a Curly divot fund?
Bob is the least of our problems there at South Shore Country Club.
Oh my goodness.
I am a regular divot replacer.
Yeah.
And I would like you to know that the golf balls that the AdCom graced me with at the end of my term as chair have all been donated back to the South Shore Country Club.
Well, if we find them, we'll bring them to the pro shop for you. If we find them in the woods, Bob, we'll bring them back to the pro shop.
They have a little logo on them, Kevin, that says you're on mute.
We did that for Fred Ives. He runs a bunch of laundromats, and he has his name on the laundromat his laundromat name on the balls. And we always find them and bring them to the pro shop, and he picks them back up.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you all.
Anyone else have any other questions? Kevin, we'll see you with some warrant articles coming up.
Yes. Yep. Looking forward to that. We have to finish up the maintenance building, and then also the pool. Those two warrant articles we'll be submitting, for the pool and the finishing of the maintenance building. Maintenance building work all the site work is completed, and we're looking forward to being able to go out to bid in the spring and getting that project completed by the fall.
Okay, great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Kevin.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Kevin.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next up, we have the community planning budget.
Yes, and I'm covering that one. So Emily Wentworth is here with us today to review the community planning budget. And Emily, maybe I'll shift it over to you to go through your couple of slides, and then I'll finish up with the budget, if that makes sense.
Sure. Happy to. Good evening. Hi, thank you for having me. Emily Wentworth, Community Planning Director. This is, now the second time I'm presenting this department budget, but the first budget cycle, the first time was just earlier this evening with the select board. So I'll just quickly highlight some of the principal functions of the department. They broadly fall into two categories. There are permitting functions that are administered by the planning board, and staff supports them both administratively, making sure legal ads run and notices go out and items are posted to the website, but also professionally ensuring that they have the most current information and recommendations for action. And then following that, after permits are issued, doing inspections of erosion controls and ensuring that any conditions of approval are complied with. So the types of applications the planning board administers include site plan review and special permits. Those are principally for parking, flexible residential developments, and common driveways. All of those applications are regulated through the zoning bylaw. They also have subdivision approvals and approval not required plans that are under the subdivision control law and our local regulations. Those ones tend to create lots, either for the first on a new street or for the latter on an existing street where there's access. And then they also regulate scenic road applications if there's going to be an alteration to a stone wall or a tree on certain designated roads. You can see from this little chart, they don't receive many of those latter applications. And then between the 2 years, I guess the trend overall is that 2021 was much busier than 2020. That likely is explained in part by COVID. There was probably less commercial site plan review applications as businesses had been closed. And then additionally, there were some changes to the triggers for a site plan review application that probably resulted in an increase of the number of single family home reconstruction or alteration projects that the board is now reviewing to make sure that erosion is not impacting either adjoining properties or public streets, along with stormwater runoff. So that's the permitting side of the work. The other side is more related to long-range planning. The most significant thing that happened this past year is that the Master Plan Committee finalized the master plan, and the planning board adopted it in August. It's presently in its final formatting phase, and we expect to have that document ready for public consumption and release within the next couple of weeks. A couple of other programs or planning efforts that the department worked on include a study on the harbor and downtown that was supported through the Regional Planning Agency, MAPC, and then through the State Department of Housing and Community Development. We also received technical assistance under the Local Rapid Recovery Program that resulted in a plan with suggestions as to how to get local businesses in the community through the COVID state of emergency impacts. We're presently working along with other departments on an update to the hazard mitigation plan. And then there are a number of zoning amendments that the board either initiated themselves or will be reviewing because they were initiated, well, in this two cases. One is a citizen's petition, the other was initiated by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Those hearings just started last night, and so I imagine you'll see more information about those down the road as we get closer to town meeting. So those are the principal services. I guess the the highlight of the year is that there was significant turnover in staff. So the prior community planning director left at the beginning of the year, as did the administrative assistant. We were able to cobble things together through a team approach with assistance from Christine Stickney, who was our interim part-time town planner, along with our special real estate counsel, Susan Murphy, and then staff from the Land Use and Development Department. We have since filled all with new people, both of the community planning director position and the administrative assistant position. And then town meeting just last year authorized funding for a third full-time position in the department for a senior planner. And that also was recently filled. As a result of who filled those positions, there are now vacancies in the Land Use and Development Department that, so you'll hear some common themes between these two budget presentations. But the intent of the senior planner position is to focus more on the permitting side of the work, providing direct staff support to the planning board. And then the community planning director position rather would work more on long range planning, implementation of the master plan, economic development, and other grant opportunities. And that's my summary. Happy to hear, Caitlin, if you want to go to the numbers, or I could present them.
Yeah, Emily. Nancy, do you mind going to the slide? So for fiscal year 2023, we're looking at a budget of $260,376. There's a slight increase year over year of about $1,300, and that really all sits up in the salary and wages line. The main driver of increase was related to the wage and classification study for that 5110 line item there. And then it's slightly offset in the department head position and the clerical services position related to the new hire starting at a lower step. Expenses are being held flat year over year, and that's basically the story there. Are there any questions?
Andy, go ahead.
The new senior planner is in your budget, Emily, is that?
Yes, it'd be in the community planning department budget, and happens to have previously worked in the land use and development department as well. So he's transitioning like me across the hall.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the community planning budget?
If you could just give us the delta, Caitlin.
Oh, of course. Yeah, so the delta for the total budget is $1,301.72. And that's just carried through from the salary line, Andy.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, Caitlin, you want to give your recommendation?
Of course. So I recommend for the community planning department a budget for FY23 of $260,000. I cannot talk right now. I keep getting all these numbers messed up. $376, which is made up of the salaries of $236,171 and expenses of $24,205.
All right. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
Appreciate it.
And next up, we have land use and development.
Thanks, Emily.
It's Emily again. So Emily, do you want to do your slides?
Sure, happy to. Okay, so, and I'll go through these more quickly. You've actually heard something similar to this presentation in the past. I'm representing again the Land Use and Development Department, but now as the former senior planner, zoning administrator. So the four main functions of the department fall into categories of land use regulation, affordable housing, production, economic development, and planning functions. On the next slide, I'll just touch on some of the highlights over the last year within each of those categories. The land use regulations, that this is now administrative and professional support for principally the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board regulates both dimensional and use permits and exceptions to our otherwise effective regulations under the zoning bylaw. In addition, they're the single agency that would issue a comprehensive permit or a mixed income permit. So in those cases, they're acting not just as the zoning board, but also as the Conservation Commission or Board of Health, Planning Board, under any local regulations. So not just those under the zoning bylaw. So in terms of staff support, similar to the Community Planning Department, department staff would assist applicants or abutters through the permitting process. We advise the board and make recommendations for action, make sure that all legal requirements are met in terms of notice or postings, and then post-permit monitor applicants for compliance with any conditions of approval. The notable issues in this area is that we've seen like a continued decrease in the number and really complexity of the applications that the board has received in recent years. And that is in part because the board is granting less variances or exceptions from our otherwise effective regulations. And then in addition, because we've achieved a statutory minima or more than 10% on our subsidized housing inventory, we're seeing fewer and smaller comprehensive permit applications. So related to the comprehensive permit applications, in part, the department also staffs on some level the Affordable Housing Trust, because we already were maintaining that subsidized housing inventory. Over the past year, we successfully applied to be redesignated as a housing choice community, and also managed and closed out a housing choice capital grant. That program is administered by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. The capital grant allowed us to rehab a two-family that the Housing Trust owns. We also recently acquired another unit at Ridgewood Crossing in order to ensure that it remains eligible for inclusion on the subsidized housing inventory. We're working on advancing a rehab of a unit they purchased on Central Street a couple years ago, and advancing plans for potential expansion or addition of another unit up on Cushing Street. And I think those are the highlights in terms of the projects that they own. In addition, because this department was, at least for the majority of the year, fully staffed, we were able to resume some of the financial reporting requirements for the Housing Trust. In terms of economic development, a lot of what the department tries to do is expedite permitting. The zoning board has delegated certain of its permitting responsibilities to the position of zoning administrator. So those applications are heard more quickly. They're processed within 35 days instead of 90 or 100 days if it goes to the full board. We also worked on the restaurant reopening group to try to help restaurants during the state of emergency conduct outdoor table seating. And also, in addition, and I apologize for the overlap between these two departments, but we worked on the local rapid recovery plan effort as well. And then finally, in terms of planning, the most notable effort this year is that the Housing Trust completed the Hingham Housing Plan. It's been presented to Planning Board and the Select Board. I believe you also heard about it in October. So that's available to the public now. I'll just note that the differences in the types of plans or planning efforts that this department focuses on versus the community planning department is that they tend to be a little bit more discrete in terms of topic area and potentially, term, and differ than from the broader comprehensive plan, not permits, but comprehensive plan or master plan efforts that are broader and longer range in terms of timeframes. So sorry, I intended to go through that more quickly, but I'll pick up the pace for the next couple of slides. The next one, you'll see just some of those metrics visually. So the number of applications, you can see the trend line is downward. That last column is 2020, simply because we didn't have a complete picture when this was developed of through 2021, but it would look similar to the 2020 number. And then as I had noted earlier, in terms of housing, that's the number of units that we have permitted throughout the town over the last 5 years. And then most importantly, the town continues to maintain a subsidized housing inventory that exceeds the state's minima. We're at 11.37%. And then the key trends on the next page, like with the community planning department, I think the most notable issue here is that the turnover in terms of staffing. But I'm pleased to let you know that a new senior planner zoning administrator will be starting next week. She's incredibly experienced and knowledgeable. So we're getting to a place where we should be at full capacity very soon. And then beyond that, I think it's mostly the numbers.
So the budget requests for this year for Land Use and Development Department are for salaries, 155,919. That's basically a 1.3% reduction from last year due to the new planning department head coming in at a lower step. And then in terms of expenses, the number is being held the same, although the total is being held the same, although ups and downs in different particular pieces of it. As Emily explained it, they're still trying to sort of true up the budget amounts for this department as compared to taking it out of the community planning originally. So increase in dues significantly for the planners who need to be certified for both the American Planning Association and also certified floodplain managers. So that's the training that we go to. And the consultant that they use is a third-party engineer who helps them in looking at different things, especially around affordable housing buildings. So, but the total across the year is the same.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Emily or Brenda about this budget? All right, seeing none, could I have a recommendation, Brenda?
Yes, recommended for Land Use and Development Department for FY23, budget of 155,919 for salaries and 7,375 for expenses.
Okay. Thanks, Emily. Thanks for doing double duty tonight.
Oh, thank you all. I appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so this concludes our, let's see, our budget hearings for tonight. So thank you all. And let's see. Next up, we have liaison reports. So George, do you want to kick off with the Sustainable Budget Task Force?
I do. don't know if Nancy's going to stop sharing her screen with us. So I get to see everybody's smiling face. There we are. So the Sustainable Budget Task Force continues to meet. They are moving into sort of the wrap-up phase, I would say, at this point, where various reports are going to be prepared and combined into final recommendations for the select board. Probably the most notable recent addition is that the financial modeling spreadsheet that John Asher has developed. He's made a few modifications to it, but it's I think it's pretty close, if not ready for viewing, and it does a great job of forecasting the property tax impact on an individual, and you have the flexibility of putting in your own particular assessed value if you know what it is, and you can determine the tax impact from an override, or B, some debt borrowing. So it's very helpful, and it does give us, at the end of the day, a snapshot of where we are in terms of the budget, which I think you all know from our earlier discussions and the review with Sue of the forecast, is that we're looking at a big hole this year that has to be filled, and not only for this year, but then going forward, how do we have a sustainable budget that provides the level of services that the residents want at a tax rate and a fee basis that residents are willing to pay for. So that's where they are. I think they're still looking at an end of January submission to the select board, and I think they will achieve that. So that's it for that, Julie.
Does anyone have
Dave?
any questions for George? Okay, Dave couldn't join the meeting tonight. He had a work emergency. So I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in and give an ACES update.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have much
Julie,
to talk about, but
I can give an update. Not this morning, but today, I did receive an email, as I'm sure the rest of the ACES team did, that on this Thursday, the school committee will begin deliberation of the FY23 budget. And that those discussions will take place over the next 4 Thursdays. If form holds true, that's how we've done it in the past years, is that John Ferris will present a portion of the budget each week to the school committee, and there'll be some discussions and that sort of thing. So we're moving towards finalizing the biggest town budget. So that should happen over the next 4 weeks.
okay, great. And ACES is invited to observe these meetings as well?
We are, yes.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for George about his update on ACES? Okay. Foster School Building Committee, Evan or Al?
I'm happy to go. Al can fill in. The Foster School Building Committee has been very busy, kind of going back and forth on the site, the design, and other aspects of the school. I can tell you from the conversations I've had and heard, and I have not been able to dial into a recent meeting of theirs, but there was a document, I think, Julie, you shared broadly with the entire advisory committee, around some questions that the MSBA had and some concerns if we, look to put a warrant article to an April or May all-town meeting, kind of going ahead for the school project. There's a number of kind of moving pieces and parts for them right now, and they're trying to determine overall cost. Costs, as we know, have increased kind of around the board for construction. And if the building needs to be situated farther up the hill on the parcel of land where it sits, which is necessary for a number of reasons, for kind of sea level rise, and then for ability to construct while keeping the current building open. There are some costs associated with that that the committee is taking a look at. So I do believe that they will have, the current plan is for them to move this forward for a warrant article that would go into an April town meeting, not a special town meeting. But that still, I think, is a little bit in flux. And there's a number of different kind of pieces and parts that are moving. Al and I talked yesterday. Julie, you and I spoke. And then I actually did speak with a member of the school committee. And I think that it probably makes sense for us to have a joint advisory select board and school committee meeting to get kind of a full update from Linda and Ray on the kind of progress of the building committee, and then some of the design choices that have been kind of fleshed out and made thus far for it.
Okay.
Any questions?
Al, do you have anything to add?
I guess only clarifying that the two issues there was the around cost that they're debating around now is what Evan mentioned in terms of sort of the environmental, and then there's the back and forth with the MSBA, which is sort of the programming. They have a template of designated program space and how much space should be given in a certain type of school building at a certain cost. And there's sort of a give and take, and again, we did this with the East School too. We sort of say, well, for these reasons, we want a bigger pre-K room or something, and you sort of go back and forth with them and negotiating on some. They'll say, okay, we see why they get more for that, but no, we won't give you more for that. So that's what that document is. It's sort of the back and forth on that.
Yep.
And ultimately you say, okay, we won't do the extra space, or I have to go to the town and say, here's what the total cost of the town is, and it's broken as state supporting this much, and we're buying extra for this.
Yeah, and I'll just say, as a citizen, and this is my understanding of it, because of where the parcel is right now, and with the wetlands that are around it, that they are kind of heavily going back and forth on where to place the building on the parcel, which would be kind of up the hill and into the rock, which will be more expensive. But then again, I don't think we'd want to put a building where it sits right now if the marshland kind of encroaches and the seas rise a little bit. It could make it pretty tricky over there. So I do think there'll be a number of things. So I think from an informational standpoint, having broader group connect, and then also I think the public needs to be a little bit more aware of some of the choices that need to be made, and why the building may be more expensive than originally intended.
And the MSBA, their reimbursement, I think that the current estimate would be $350 per square foot, but the construction costs are closer to $600 per square foot currently.
Yep. Yeah, and I think, Julie, the over and above too, like they won't, and Alan, you probably know this better than I do, but if we need to move the building to a different place on the site, that we're basically going into bedrock to place the building on top of it, that's kind of on us, right? Because we've cited and selected this parcel. So I think that isn't necessarily even inclusive of the per square foot building cost of the actual building.
Nancy, you have a question?
Yeah, Evan, has there been any discussion regarding an alternate site at all?
You know, there was early on, Nancy, and even in the MSBA report, they suggest Carlson. And an esteemed member of this committee was able to clarify for me that there's part federal land over in Bear Cove, so you really can't do that. I think we did a pretty exhaustive look of where to place the building and kind of available town parcels. So yeah, I think it needs to go where it needs to go right now. I
So
don't know if
that has not been resurrected.
No, it's suggested by the MSBA to move it, but I'm not necessarily thinking that the school building committee, saw fit to entertain that when they kind of, answered back a list of questions that the MSBA had. It's actually in that packet that that Julie forwarded along.
Evan, what was the story with Carlson? I thought the feds granted it over to the town in the 70s. It's federal land. Is that what you said?
They did, but I'm we have a multitude of attorneys on this call. My understanding is because it is owned by the town, but it was used as a munitions site, that there are certain things we cannot do with that site.
It also, I think, is limited.
And there are restrictions.
There's restrictions on
there are
how it can be
restrictions.
used.
Yeah.
And I think in that packet Julie sent, there's a letter from Susan Murphy that really lays out the restrictions as to why you couldn't cite the school there.
Right.
Yep. Thank you, Daveline.
Those pesky
Anyone else have any
restrictions.
questions?
Yeah, so buckle up. This one's going to be fun, people.
I have a question. You may not know the answer. You're saying it sounds like the cost per square foot is about twofold right now.
Yep.
That they're going to cover. In terms of like benchmarks as other communities that may be going through the same process, I mean, I guess I just assumed it would be higher, but how much higher? Is there an average across that we could use as a measuring stick to see where we're coming in at?
Caitlin, that's a great question. It's a question there's a meeting tomorrow, by the way, which you're all invited to. It's on the town website. And I believe they've been meeting in person, but it'll be tomorrow evening. I'm going to zoom in. I think Alan's going to try to zoom in as well. The answer to your question is, I think it's a very active taxiway of variables that are going into construction costs right now. And you throw on top of that, I don't know that you could benchmark a town that has a school, that close to wetlands with a parcel that has that much bedrock on it. So I'm not sure. I know Anthony loves benchmarks, but I'm not sure the benchmark would tell us much. I think it's going to be actual construction costs to put a building for 500 kids on that site where it needs to be based on potential sea level rise. But everything's, and I'll just say this, and I think I have an update for Harbor Development as well. Everything's coming in like 2x what people thought it was going to. It's just where it is right now. Andy, you're on mute.
So Evan or Al, as the building committee has talked about these things, and I haven't, other than what we have received in AdCom, I haven't heard much public discussion about the expected cost, which I think seems to me to be significantly higher than was thought, say, a year ago. And if they're talking about this being on a town meeting article in April, is there any planning as to how to get people in the town talking about this and prepared for it? I don't know exactly how to ask my question, but April's not very far away. And if you're talking about $78 million.
I don't have an answer to that question. I'm going to tune in tomorrow and ask that question. I'll be honest, before the holidays, I don't know. I didn't get a tremendous amount of time to dig into that. And we had tried to zoom into a couple of our meetings, which they did in person, which were very tough to keep track of. Yeah. So we'll do that tomorrow and ask those questions, which is why I suggested to Julie and to the school committee member that we probably do a joint session to get an update. I think it makes most sense, particularly if they really want to go for April.
Yeah,
I
Well, and if you
attended a
don't-
meeting in early December and I didn't hear it. It was all, where should the building sit? Where should it face south or west or? And
It's,
should it
it's
be three
and
floors or
not
two
to,
floors? Yeah.
what they're doing is very detailed work too. It's like, classroom sizes and
Yeah.
lunchroom sizes and gymnasium size. I mean, there's a lot of detail that's going into it. So there's a lot of work that this committee's doing. And so but I do think that the costs are some things that are coming in a little bit later than everybody would like, just because of, it's a very, fluid situation in some cases. And I may not be doing it justice. I think Linda or Ray could probably do a much better job of explaining to us kind of exactly where we are.
Well, and part of, I'm just thinking, if you put the school issue and the public facility building and the fact that we don't seem to know yet how we're going to fund our budget, it just seems like there's an awful lot that's going to be on the table before April.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I don't have any answers. I just have questions.
Yeah. But I think that your point about the dialogue, that needs to get out there.
Okay, well, thank you for that update, Evan. I put on here an update from planning board. I'm not sure if Andy, if you have anything.
Yes, I can give a quick update based primarily on last night's meeting of the planning board. The planning board had a design progress report presentation by the engineers, I guess, who are working on the project. And the planning board had several questions that, well, some are good, some are bad, but the upshot of it was that it would be a good idea for someone from the Public Safety Facility Building Committee to be sure that they attend the planning board meetings when that is on the agenda, or review the tape, or if there is a tape, I'm not sure, or the minutes. I think there may have been somebody from your committee, Nancy, there, but did not respond to the questions. The questions were two types. One had to do with, which was really not a planning board issue, but whether adequate consideration had been given to certain interior design features. That's and my own opinion, which I did not express obviously, but is that the police chief and the fire chief are very much attuned to what the needs of their departments are, and they're so obviously lacking in the current facilities that either or both of the chiefs could have answered all those questions about the interior and the appropriation of space quite satisfactorily. The second comments had to deal with the exterior and the appearance of the building. Some of the members were quite concerned that this is quite a massive structure, and that the appearance is not very compatible with the designs of the existing shipyard structures, and all the time and effort that went into the planning of the shipyard structures, if you will. And so there's quite a bit of concern on the planning board that this not be too much of a prison-like structure, or too much brutalism, and that it fit in appropriately with the shipyard existing structures, and also be a appropriate presentation to the public, if you will, of the town of Hingham, because it's right over the Weymouth-Hingham line, and it's going to be so big relative to what else is there, that it's going to create first impressions for a lot of people driving down 3A. So that's more than I expected to say on that, but the Public Safety Facility Committee should be aware that the planning board is concerned about those. Certainly those two areas, and certainly the latter area, the appearance is well within their bailiwick. With the other issue that was of concern to us was the warrant articles. There are 3 warrant articles. There was a brief discussion of the general gender neutral amendment, which the planning board voted to approve. That's pretty straightforward. It follows the language of the amendment to the general bylaws. I think it just adds, it changes the term grandfathering or grandfathered to pre-existing use. The next article is an attempt to streamline the special permit and site plan review procedures. And that provoked a lot of discussion. It's not at all clear that there's anything close to a consensus yet on the planning board as to what they want to do with that. But long story short, the discussion was continued to their meeting. It wasn't clear to me whether it was their meeting on the 24th of January or on the 31st. The other article which surprised me was the residential accessory uses article. This is not the article that was proposed previously about the use of detached accessory buildings as residences. This is not that. This is an article that the Zoning Board of Appeals put forth. And it attempts to provide a little more specification with regard to what the Zoning Board of Appeals can and should consider when it dealing with an accessory use of a residence, not just as a home office, that's not a concern, but running another business out of your home, and what are the factors that should be considered by the board, obviously primarily concerning what the impact is going to be on the neighborhood. I don't think we have a liaison to the ZBA, so if it's okay with you, Julie, we'll just assume, we being Matthew Lay, Sarah, Amelia, and myself, will just assume that we should take that article as well. Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I had Matt on ZBA, didn't I?
Say again?
I think it was one,
Okay.
in the initial thing, Julie, it was one column that said planning and or planning/zoning.
Okay, well, we'll handle that as
Planning and
well.
zoning, yeah, okay, so it's combined, Andy, so you guys. can
Okay,
do
that's fine.
Yeah.
There was obviously no discussion of the flood plan article because that will be withdrawn. There hasn't yet been finalization of what the town is expected to do, what the feds expect the town to do by way of changes to the flood zone maps. And the only other thing on the agenda of any concern was the planning board is trying to figure out how it should respond to the solicitation of the Climate Action Committee for support regarding the hiring of a sustainability director. And they're wondering to what extent, how much they should get involved in that. Is that something that the planning board should become more involved with, or should it leave it to the personnel board to define the duties and responsibilities of that position? So that issue was discussed, but that also the discussion was continued until a meeting later in January. And that's pretty much what's going on with the planning board.
Thank you. Nancy, you had your hand raised. Do you have a question?
The question, but a comment, I just wanted to comment back on Andy's first topic, which was the public safety facility. And just as a reminder to this group and perhaps to the planning board as well, that the architects have been very clear that they have been very singularly focused on the inside of the building, and that everything that has been presented as what the edifice would actually look like from the outside is just a rendering and it has not been designed yet, that's part of the design phase, which is the next phase that committee will be moving into. So I don't want anyone to think that they've kind of gone rogue and haven't been, because I think everyone in a town is aware of how much effort was put into the design of the shipyard.
Good. I'll pass that on to Emily Wentworth, who will pass it on to the board. There was a rendering put up on a slide last night, one or two renderings that.
Yeah, and there's, yeah.
And I mean, those make it look like a prison, so that shocked everybody, I guess. Not me. I mean, I always thought of a police station as a kind of a prison, but.
I know, it's a prison. It is a prison. And maybe the prison look is cheaper. Let's go with that. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, thank you, Andy. And I don't have harbor development on the agenda, but Evan, if you want to give a one-liner update, but we're not discussing, go for it.
I'll just hold off till the next meeting.
Okay. All right, so that's it for our liaison updates. Thank you. So last is discussion of advisory committee housekeeping items. So our next meeting is next Tuesday, January 11th. And we have the budgets of historic preservation, 3 of the public safety budgets, the Shrek 911 dispatch, public safety utilities, and the building department, and then the trustees of the bathing beach. So we don't have that many budgets next week because we're kind of slowed down a tiny bit by the select board's schedule for this month. And so we're just going to get through what we're able to next week. But we finally have, or we're very close to being able to agree or do our vote for our advisory committee handbook. So I'd like to do one last run through next Tuesday of just to re-familiarize everyone just quickly. These are the final changes. This is the final version, but we won't, so we're ready. So then the following week, we'll take a vote on the handbook. And we have to wait until the select board gives its final vote on the gender neutral bylaw changes, which affects our AdCom bylaw. And Brenda and Tina, just late breaking, I got today, and I'll forward to you that last organizational chart that we've been waiting for, that piece that would go into the document. So I just figured to put it on the agenda for next week that we can just quickly run through the last version of the handbook. And then finally, I'm still working on this, but hopefully next week, what I'd like to have is the David Pace, the chair of the personnel board. I've invited him to come to the advisory committee to give an update on last year, the wage and classification study. It keeps coming up in all of our budgets so far this year, where it's affected the salaries. And David can also give us some insight into how the town is, their perspective on working on the wages and how the town manages the growth of personnel costs. So if this happens next week, we would go into executive session at the beginning of our meeting. But I need to confirm all that, and it's just by hoping for next Tuesday. So does anyone have anything else to add? Or let's see, Andy's got a question.
I had three. Has a date of town meeting been established?
It has not been fully decided, but there is, the idea is that it would just be a little bit later, like a week later, on a Saturday. There's the select board is considering having it outside again this year, and then so it would be on a Saturday. But I don't have
So that would be a
tentative
late.
date that they're thinking about is April 30th.
Okay. Okay.
And then, of course, there'd be a couple of rain dates subsequently, but they have not, they haven't decided for sure yet, but I'll let you know as soon as I hear.
Thank you. The second question is January 20 the deadline for warrant article submissions?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Isn't that kind of a fake deadline?
Sorry?
Well, it's
Isn't
not. I
it
mean,
kind of a fake deadline? Don't we always have things that go in after?
not really. No, I mean, you can have an article
Look at Sue,
where
I'm getting a no, Sue, yep.
and our arms are folded too. We've got some negative.
Yes,
body
I'm
language
getting
on
the
this one.
scolding Sue look right now.
Well, the idea is that the warrant does close January 20th. There are maybe some articles that you don't know, like for example, last year, the PRS windows, we didn't have the dollar amount until very late in the process, which we're hoping we don't have a lot of articles like that this year. But the idea is that all the articles that we are going to consider will know about by January 20th. And so when one of the next two meetings, I'm going to go over just sort of the warrant article process that we're going to go through so that everybody knows what to expect for the next phase of our meetings.
And I don't remember well enough from year to year how long that process takes, but if I had a guess, I would say we go from the beginning of February to middle of March to get through.
So we need to be done by the middle of March, because that's when the all the articles, all the comments, everything is put together and the into the warrant, and the warrant would go to the printer. But when we're done with what we do, then it has to also pass through the town council's office and, make sure everything is clean and correct, and then we send it to the printer. So the idea is that we'll meet weekly in January, and then we're going to meet twice a week in February, except for February vacation week. Although, so the idea is that we would not meet during February vacation week, and then we resume our 2 times a week at the beginning of March until we're done. So it's gonna be busy. Anyone have any other questions? Okay, can I get a motion to, it matters not anticipated within 48 hours of the meeting? Anything? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Bob?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Nancy? Aye.
She said,
Nancy's an
she
aye.
said aye.
Okay. Evan?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Dabeline?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Al?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Caitlin?
Aye.
Sarah had to leave early. She had sick people in her house. All right, meeting's adjourned.